Welcome back to From Day 1 Part 2 on this afternoon. Not much, but there is one thing, so we'll grab the 4 spears in the back. And we will continue on with some morons who think the Earth, unfortunately, is flat. So we have Jerem the moron today. Believing the Earth is flat. So let's go ahead and start while we start part 2.
Move away from.
So to do that, I think we should get sorry about that for the yawn. Stuff started. So just trying to get everything queued.
Operated by the U.S. Air Force. Yeah, let's also pay no attention to the fact that if you put in the coordinates, it gets you where you want to go almost every single fucking time. And let's also pay no attention to the fact that even if fucking Hitler owned and operated GPS, it would still get you where you want to go almost every single fucking time. And let's pay no attention to the fact that you are a fucking idiot.
And it's a simple test. I set 2 points level with each other using the water surface as the level. And so that the height of the instrument is the same height above the water as the target that I'm pointing on. And the purpose of this sketch is to get across this relationship that the horizontal plane is perpendicular to the direction of the vertical plumb line. Okay? And so I took pictures with my telescope set horizontally, and you can see that the target is below that line. Of course, this is very exaggerated. Look at one of those pictures. It looks like this. Okay? And I've got it, looking at it from the other direction as well. Same thing. Well, what does that tell you? It tells you that if the Earth were flat, then the vertical plumb line would be parallel everywhere. There would be this inclination would not exist. It would be parallel, and the sum of the zenith angles would be 90, no matter what.
So after doing my own research, I found out that Mr Kozlowski is a professional geodetic surveyor from Maser Consulting out of New Jersey. Geodetic surveyors are necessary for construction projects that occur over great distances, such as railways, highways, and bridges. What Mr. Kozlowski is saying is that plumb lines on a flat Earth should all be parallel to one another. Plumb lines are the vertical lines that intersect the horizontal plane of the Earth at a perpendicular or 90-degree angle. Now, with basic geometry, plumb lines and the zenith angle, you should be able to accurately determine whether the Earth is flat or a globe. So let's see if we can figure this one out ourselves. But first, let's make a few assumptions. Number 1, the viewing height of both observers is exactly the same. Number 2, The lines of sight of both observers intersect their relative plumb lines at perpendicular or 90-degree angles so that each observer is looking exactly straight parallel to the horizontal plane of the Earth. Now, if we are living on a flat Earth, all plumb lines should be parallel to one another because all plumb lines should intersect the exact same horizontal plane of the Earth at the exact same perpendicular angle. Using geometry, we can now assert that the lines of sight of both observers are parallel not just to each other, but also to the horizontal plane of the Earth, resulting in a zenith angle of exactly 180 degrees. But if we were living on a globe Earth, then every single plumb line would be leaning away from every other plumb line. And if the two observers maintained their line of sight to be perpendicular to their respective plumb lines, it would be impossible for them to be parallel to one another. The only way to get the line of sights to become parallel is to increase the zenith angle on both observers equally until the line of sights align themselves. And this is exactly what Mr. Kozlowski measured and observed with his experiment. Jism, you are mathematically and geometrically incorrect, and you are a fucking idiot.
What Jesse is showing here is that when you look into the distance, items reduce in size. That's it. Of course, the sum of the zenith angles will always be greater than 180 in all directions, and this is because items do not get larger with distance, they get smaller. And hence, you have angles larger than 180 degrees and will every time in every direction. Then he says if the Earth were flat, that the vertical plumb lines would be parallel, and guess what? They are parallel. What you're doing is you're taking an observer's line of sight and looking off in the distance, in which case the sight line will always miss the target high, not because of curvature, but because you're measuring perspective.
Oh wow, am I really about to try to explain this fucktard's logic? Jism and I can both agree that as objects move further away, they decrease in size uniformly due to perspective. However, for some fucked off reason, he also believes that as they decrease in size, they drop in elevation. How the fuck is this even possible on a flat Earth, you fucking idiot? What the law of perspective actually describes is how objects shrink uniformly in size but maintain their relative position to the line of sight of the observer. Jism, what you're saying is factually incorrect and you are a fucking idiot. Here, I'll give you a couple of examples to show how fucking wrong you are. Now, anyone can see in this picture that all the metal handrails seem to converge on one single point at the end of the pier. Not only that, but if you drew straight lines along the edges of the planks, they would also all appear to point to that exact same point at the end of the pier. Also, the wooden benches in the middle all seem to rise up to the same exact point. This is a perfect example of how perspective actually works. I've added this small animation to show you perspective in action. Notice how his hands remain in perfect perspective alignment with the metal railing on the outside of the pier. I did not have to increase his elevation. I simply increased his size uniformly and it appears as though he's coming down the pier towards you. Jism, what I don't think you fucking understand is that arguing that objects drop in elevation as they get further away from you in every direction is an argument for a globe Earth. Thank you, but we don't need any fucking help from any fucking idiots like you.
Let's take a look at the raw measurements of Mr. Kozlowski and see if we can find anything interesting. Jesse shows that he measured an 8-inch drop after 7,300 feet. So if he walked to his next target and again measured 7,300 feet, he'd again measure about 8 inches. And if he went from San Francisco to San Diego, measuring section by section of 7,300 feet, he'd cover 2.6 million feet, measuring 8 inches per. So 361 sections of 8 inches each is 2,893 inches, or 241 feet. But San Francisco to San Diego is 500 miles. There should be 31.45 miles of drop. Jesse measured 241 feet. Someone should tell Jesse that we are missing 31.40 miles of curvature.
And somebody should tell Jism that he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. If you weren't already completely convinced that Jism's a fucking idiot, then what he just said should push you beyond any further contemplation. Jism, you are describing observations that can only be made on a constantly declining plane. 8 inches per mile over 500 miles would result in 241 feet. While your middle school mathematics are amazing, your elementary intellect infuriates me because you are not taking into account that when the second observer looks back at the first observer is not 8 inches above him, the first observer is 8 inches below him. You have made this proclamation yourself earlier in this video. The actual equation you're looking for is 8 inches per mile squared, which is where you're going to find the missing 31.5 miles. But I know that you know this, and yet you still choose to be intellectually dishonest. You are a fucking idiot.
So here we see the crosshairs missing the target high. And Jesse thinks this is because he lives on a ball, and the target is angled away from him. But actually, the reason that we miss the target high is because things in the distance reduce in size. Nothing is leaning away from you. The so-called zenith angle is actually perspective. So we know that things will always shrink. Your sight line will always be high of the target, and just because someone told you that the reason for this is because you live on a big space ball doesn't make it true. In this case, it makes it a lie.
You are a fucking idiot.
My crosshair through my level instrument sitting on top of the fire tower at Apple Pie Hill at about elevation 256 feet, looking at the Comcast building, which is over 1,000 feet tall, but we're intersecting it at the top rather than somewhere down lower at 256, let's say.
Maybe now you can see the problem. Jesse thinks if he looks through a leveled telescope at 256 feet high and looks across 30 miles at the Comcast building, which is over 1,000 feet tall, that his crosshairs should hit that building at 256 feet, as if buildings in the distance remain the same height no matter how far away they are. The truth is that when you look through a telescope, you're looking at a 2D image, a picture or a 2D window in front of you. You can't just take that one person's perspective, because we all know things shrink in the distance. And we know that the telescope does not know.
Oh my fucking god, are you fucking kidding me? Yeah, it's time that we end this video. Jism just said that the inability for an inanimate object to comprehend what it's observing is actual proof of a flat earth. Jism, you are a fucking idiot. Now I'd like to...
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought the guy might have actually been able to put up an argument or two. Did not think he was going to be that big of an idiot. But, well, I guess he is. So let's try a different one. Let's try a Mr. Nathan Thompson. Nathan, is there any way you could at least try to be better? Because at this point, I'm not willing to actually say you're going to be better. But I'm just asking, can you at least try? Please, can you at least try? Okay, why do we have a sledgehammer? Why do we have a golf ball? What the hell does either of those have anything to do with any of this?
And to keep the ball on top of the sledgehammer. Alright, here we go. Alright, astrolabes prove flat Earth because on a globe everything's supposed to be spinning and orbing around in space, and we wouldn't see the same thing year after year.
So I can count 3 problems with his first argument already. 1. Nathan Thompson does not understand how humongous the universe actually is. Alpha Centauri, which is the star nearest to our sun, is over 4 light years away, and each light year is almost 6 trillion miles long. At these distances, to measure an observable difference in direction, you would not only need an advanced degree in astronomy, but you would also need powerful and precise equipment. And astronomers have been using powerful and precise equipment to make these observations for decades. 2. The size of the Earth's orbit when compared to the size of the entire Milky Way galaxy is minuscule, and therefore would not result in any additional apparent motion of stars throughout the sky. It should be noted that the orbit of the Earth around the Sun is directly responsible for stellar parallax, though. And 3. The year-to-year timescale at which you're comparing your observations is simply too small. You would need centuries, if not millennia, of observations to notice an observable change in motion. Nathan Thompson, you are an idiot.
Compasses prove the Earth is flat because you have to hold them flat for them to work. A compass in the southern hemisphere would actually be pointing off into outer space, not at the North Pole, so I don't know how that works.
Well, at least you can admit that you don't know what you're talking about when it comes to compasses, because you are wrong on both accounts. Number 1, not every compass needs to be held perfectly level to get it to work. Global needles, for instance, can be tilted up to 20 degrees and still point to the North or South poles. Number 2, compasses that work in the northern hemisphere only work in the northern hemisphere, and compasses that work in the southern hemisphere only work in the southern hemisphere. If you are going to be making scientific claims about the functionality of compasses, I suggest you do your research, because you are an idiot.
We'll go with a really simple one. Water has no convexity. Water's flat. Bedford level proves that.
The Bedford level experiment is a staple to any flat earther's argument. This experiment was conducted by Samuel Rowbotham around 1838. In this experiment, Mr. Rowbotham had his friend paddle down the Bedford River 6 miles. The Bedford River is a completely flat river, and according to globe Earth calculations, there should have been an observed drop of approximately 24 feet due to the curvature of the Earth. Mr. Rowbotham could see his friend and the rowboat in its entirety. Therefore, Mr. Rowbotham concluded that the Earth must be flat. However, Mr. Rowbotham did not take into account atmospheric refraction. When taking into account atmospheric refraction, it is not only possible on a globe Earth, but it is proof for a globe Earth. You, my friend, are an idiot.
The laser experiments that I've been seeing prove that. Sight distances prove that. The fact you can zoom in on ships that have gone in past the horizon, that proves that water's flat, so...
Yeah, well, maybe you can explain why you or no other flat earther ever has gone out to the beach with a telescope and observed a ship going 50 miles out to sea. This observation should be cheap and easy to make and would 100% debunk the globe Earth model. However, due to the Earth being a globe, there is a point at which an object will travel that no telescope, no matter how strong its zoom in, can pull it back into view because it has traversed the horizon. Mr. Thompson, you are an idiot.
Also, crepuscular rays from the sun prove the sun is close and not 93 million miles away.
Actually, crepuscular rays do not prove the distance of the sun whatsoever. All rays of light, by nature, will appear to an observer to move parallel to one another. Due to perspective, these rays will appear to diverge from one point as they approach an observer and converge to a similar point as they leave an observer. This is completely due to perspective and has nothing to do with the distance of the sun from the observer. You are an idiot.
The drastic variations in temperatures throughout the day, from sunrise to high noon to sunset, those are difficult.
Like most flat earthers and most flat earth arguments, you're only about 10% right. While the presence of sunlight is generally responsible for the differences in daytime versus nighttime temperatures, local temperature conditions are affected more by atmospheric conditions around them. That's why if a wind current from the north blows in, it all of a sudden feels cold. So I'm not going to call you an idiot because you're not educated on weather phenomenon, but since you acted like you were, you are an idiot.
Another proof the Earth is flat is they throw it in our face with the UN logo. Boom, divided into 33 sections.
I'm not going to spend a lot of time disproving this claim. The UN's logo is simply a two-dimensional representation of the three-dimensional globe Earth. What I will say is that if the shape of the Earth is the greatest secret and the greatest lie ever told to the human population, then why would the world's largest international organization use it for its logo? You and flat earthers are idiots.
Another proof the Earth is flat is, alright, star trails. Star trails have no progressive motion through space.
We covered this one earlier in the video. The stars are simply too far away and you don't have enough time to make comparable measurements to observe progressive motion of stars.
So, what else we got? Another proof the Earth is flat is airplanes. They don't adjust for curvature.
Airplanes don't have to adjust for curvature. Thank you, gravity.
So the FAA trains pilots on what's called a TGF. It's a Target Generation Facility. The TGF is a flat Earth simulator they spent millions of dollars to develop. And it also states in the software that there is no accounting for gravity or the Earth's spin.
I must admit, before debunking this video, I had no idea what the Target Generation Facility, or TGF, actually was. However, after doing a little bit of research, I have found out that the TGF is in no way a flat Earth simulator. It is actually a two-dimensional representation of objects flying through a three-dimensional space, and is not used by the FAA to train pilots, but is used by the FAA to train air traffic controllers. And since it is simply a simulation, there is no need to take into account gravity or the rotation of the Earth. You are an idiot.
So the Earth's stationary. That's another proof the Earth's not a spinning ball, is the Earth's stationary. Every test ever performed and everything you can see with your eyes confirms that. Mickelson Morley proved that we're not moving through space. Sagnac proved that, we're not moving through space. Airy's failure proved we're not moving through space. That's why it's a failure.
All three experiments that you have provided as proof for a flat and stationary Earth all failed due to one key aspect, the assumption that an ether was not only present, but absolutely necessary for light to travel through. And Einstein disproved this theory with his paper on special relativity. In fact, not even one of those three experiments were even designed to test if the Earth is flat or not. You are an idiot.
Here's another one, a really big one. The marine horizon is always flat and rises to eye level. How about that?
Catch me outside, how about that?
Actually, you're factually incorrect. Most smartphones have access to theodolite apps that can accurately measure the drop in horizon with the increase in elevation on an airplane. It is because of this fact alone that most intelligent flat earthers, if there are such things, have completely abandoned the horizon rising to eye level argument. However, you are an idiot.
Sight distances on land prove the Earth is flat. So if you stand on the other side of Lake Michigan, you can see the Chicago skyline when the entire thing should be underwater. Not a portion of it, the entire thing.
The only problem that I see with your argument here is that you are not taking into account atmospheric conditions that lead to atmospheric refraction and reflection. This is completely why sight distances, especially over water, are completely dependent upon the atmospheric conditions when the observations are made.
What else we got? Another thing, all the NASA
You being an
astronauts
idiot?
are Freemasons and liars.
According to multiple online sources, of the 536 people that have been to space, only 7 have actually been Freemasons, and another 5 had fathers who were Freemasons. Even if I give you all 12 of those astronauts as having direct ties to Freemasons, that still only accounts for 2.2% of all the people that have been to space. You are a liar and an idiot.
They all take blood oaths to lie to you guys, and then you defend them on the internet when I confront them at Starbucks like a fool.
Yeah, well, most honest people do not appreciate an uneducated, unintelligent, dishonest, disingenuous jackass like yourself maliciously confronting a NASA employee while he's at Starbucks getting his coffee about the lies of which you have no proof even exist. Nathan, you are an idiot.
Wait, F a Colt pendulum. F a Colt pendulum? Now, please, tell me, if a pendulum that proves the Earth is spinning, if that's proof the Earth is spinning, how come anything that's hanging doesn't start doing one of these mothers right here? Anything hanging, if a Colt pendulum proves spinning Earth, should be doing one of those.
Foucault's pendulum was a device invented by Léon Foucault at the Paris Observatory in 1851. The pendulum was designed to accurately and repeatedly demonstrate the rotation of the Earth. The engineering design of the pendulum allows it to swing freely without any force interference due to this rotation. So when constructed properly, a free-swinging pendulum will also precess 360 degrees over the length of a day. However, any application of any force to the pendulum will alter its motion along with its precession. Do you really think that by hanging a sledgehammer from your hand, you are actually recreating the Foucault pendulum experiment? You are an idiot.
Another proof the Earth is flat is you don't get heavier the farther away you go from the equator. So, if Earth's a spinning ball, centrifugal force is still a thing. The spinning ball Earth is going to be attempting to hurl you off. I know we have, magic pseudoscience gravity, but even if gravity were real, as you leave the equator, you should get heavier and heavier and heavier. Same way if you're on a merry-go-round and you're going around the outside, and then you move towards the inside, you're going to notice less and less centrifugal force, or less and less outward pull. So that's another proof of Earth's flat.
Actually, Mr. Thompson, you are almost correct here, but like most flat Earth scientists, you've made some pretty big assumptions instead of doing some fairly easy calculations. As you get further away from the equator, you travel less linear distance in the same amount of time as someone who is on the equator. These differences in latitudes directly result in a difference of centrifugal forces. So let's calculate these differences ourselves. You look like you weigh about 50 kilograms, so we'll use that to estimate the change in weight from the equator to 1 degree south of the North Pole. Given that the gravitational pull is fairly consistent around the globe with minor measurable differences in certain places, we can assert that the gravitational force acting upon you would be approximately 490.33 newtons everywhere on the planet. The centrifugal force trying to throw you off varies at different latitudes due to the linear velocity slowing down to zero as it approaches the pole in either direction. The linear velocity at any latitude can be calculated as follows: 2 pi times the radius of the Earth times the cosine of the latitude divided by the number of seconds in a day. For our example, your linear velocity at 89 degrees north latitude would be approximately 26.49 meters per second, and your linear velocity at the equator would be approximately 463 meters per second. Calculating for centrifugal force is easy. It's simply the mass of an object times its linear velocity squared divided by the circumference of the Earth. At the equator, you have a centrifugal force of approximately 1.681 newtons pushing you outwards, and at 89 degrees north, you have a centrifugal force of approximately 0.006 newtons acting against gravity. Can you see a problem with your argument yet? While the centrifugal force is 1.7 newtons at the equator, there is 490.33 newtons of gravitational force pulling you down. Calculating further, we can determine that you, at 89 degrees north, would weigh 1.003 times your weight at the equator. In other words, if you weigh 50 kilograms at the equator, at 89 degrees north, you would only weigh 50.17 kilograms. You really should math check yourself before making these wild assertions because you look like an idiot.
So yeah, pictures from space. They're all fake, so that's cool. Can't find a legit one.
The fake pictures from space argument is probably the most idiotic claim that all flat earthers consistently make. First, most pictures of Earth are taken from low Earth orbit and aren't far enough away to make a complete photo of the entire globe in one snapshot. For those pictures, a complete Earth is created using composites of actual photographs. This method sometimes results in patches of the Earth that unfortunately don't get pictured. Space agencies do their best to make up for these small errors, but in general, the photograph is legitimate. Second, even if you were presented with an actual photo of the globe Earth, like for instance the Japanese Himawari 8 satellite that takes a full globe Earth picture every 10 minutes that is 100% verifiable with local weather patterns, you would not accept it. Flat earthers are known for their selective acceptance of observable evidence because flat earthers are idiots.
Countries, I don't even care if you say, oh, how would you know what a real picture looks like? The countries are changing sizes, guys. United States, this big in one picture, and it's this big in another picture. That doesn't make any sense, okay?
Well, obviously, when an object moves towards or away from an observer, they change in apparent size due to perspective. Compound that with the fact that the objects are also on a spinning globe, and then really confuse your observations by taking the photo from different cameras at different distances and at different times, and you will obviously notice a considerable difference in their apparent size. What doesn't make sense is that flat earthers, like yourself, prescribe perspective when an observation supports their claim, but willfully ignores perspective when it contradicts their belief. Nathan Thompson, you are intellectually dishonest and you are an idiot.
Marine snipers do not adjust for the Coriolis effect. Miguel Michael Angel can confirm that. He posted his exit paperwork from the military yesterday.
The Coriolis effect on a sniper's accuracy is very minute and considered intangible on shots of less than 1 kilometer. However, shots of over 1 kilometer in distance will be affected slightly by the rotation of the Earth. The Coriolis effect is most notable on weather patterns, as all hurricanes in the northern hemisphere rotate counterclockwise and all hurricanes in the southern hemisphere rotate clockwise.
Rex Harrison is a Marine sniper and a stuntman. When he shoots a bullet or he jumps out of a moving car, he does not adjust for the Coriolis.
Wait, what the? Did you just say that a stuntman jumping out of a car and not having to adjust for the Coriolis effect is actual proof of a flat Earth? You are an idiot.
Yeah, he did. He did say that.
So, all the physicists can tell you, Earth was a spinning ball orbiting around the sun, we would have 3 types of angular momentum. So,
while actual physicists will agree with you that all 3 forces of angular momentum should be felt, only YouTube physicists will agree that this is actual proof of no cosmic motion and a flat Earth. You are an idiot. So we're going to end this video on this argument right here. And if you stay till the end, I truly appreciate it. Because Nathan Thompson...
Yeah, he's an idiot. Fucking idiots. Is there any of these that can even remotely hold the water of at least trying to give a valid argument? Any? Please? Any of you? Oh, really? Oh, really, really? Really? Oh, fuck it, let's do it. Alright. As we continue the how stupid can fucking people be, this idiot believes that the speed of light is fake. Yeah, I feel dumber just actually saying that. It ain't my belief. Let's begin.
Now, this is for whom people, whomever believes.
Stop! That's fucking Nathan Thompson, isn't it? How dare you bring me Nathan Thompson? Seriously, how dare you? But, well, we're fucking already here. Proceed, moron.
In space, okay? Who disagrees with me that space does not exist? This is for you.
Ah, yes. CC, the space-denying flat Earth idiot who is known for such films as Traveling in Cars with Phones, Me, My Phone, and My Car, and the Flat Earther classic but dangerous instructional video series, How to Vertical Film While Driving. Well, let's see what the great Kool-Aid Man has to say today.
Scientism wants you to believe that space does exist, and it's this enormous universe.
Well, all evidence does seem to point to space existing, especially the degrading pressure of our atmosphere with height, along with the expansion of rockets' exhaust as they get higher in altitude. On Earth, we consider anything above the Kármán line space, so yeah, space exists, and CC is an idiot.
However, I come to the conclusion that scientists are complete bullshitters.
And I've come to the conclusion that you are a complete fucking idiot. Here, let's let the audience decide. Keep track at home. And at the end of this video, leave a comment with your own decision. Will CC convince you that all scientists are complete bullshitters, or will I convince you that CC is a disingenuous piece of shit idiot?
You know, I highly doubt it, but hell, fuck. I'm bored. I can't get my 3 last hits here. So why not? Let's play the game. Moron, you have the mic.
Because if you think about it, guys,
Oh shit, everybody watch out. A flat earther is thinking.
time. Time can't be measured in space. That's what the scientists think.
What the fuck do you mean by time can't be measured in space? Because absolutely no reputable scientists say that. So you have to clarify. Do you mean that if you take a clock into space, it won't tick? Or do you mean that there is no time to be measured in space? It doesn't matter, because either way you're wrong. So you're still a fucking idiot.
It can't be measured in space. Okay, alright, so let's take a look at that statement.
Should we look at it from a scientific point of view, or from the point of view of a pseudo-scientific bus driver?
And let's take a look at, well then how are they measuring the year or how old these galaxies are and that are so far away? Oh, well, because of light.
First off, a year has nothing to do with the amount of time light goes anywhere, and only to do with the amount of time it takes for the Earth to orbit the Sun, you idiot. Now, as far as light being used to determine distance, that's another thing. Typically, there are 2 general ways to measure the distance of objects outside of our galaxy. The first is with standard candles. Standard candles are astrophysical objects whose luminosity is consistent throughout the universe. By directly measuring the intensity of a standard candle and knowing that the intensity of light falls off at 1 over the distance squared, we can calculate its distance from Earth. The other way of measuring more distant objects is with redshift, which is a result of the expansion of the universe.
They look at the galaxy and they say it's 50 trillion light years away.
50 trillion light years away? Want to try that again, idiot?
Maybe it's not 50 trillion. Let's say it's 50 billion light years away, okay?
Nope. You're still an idiot. Try again.
Easier number to work with. You know, trillion might be a little bit too much. Let's work with billion.
Come on, CC. You know that any number over 3 is too hard for flat earth idiots to work with.
50 billion light years away. So that's how they estimate the age of the galaxy.
Before we get started with some actual science, let me ding you again for saying stupid shit like the galaxies are 50 billion light years away first, because you are an idiot. When astronomers look at the distance to galaxies that are approximately 10 to 13.6 billion light years away, they are seeing the galaxies as they were about 10 to 13.6 billion years ago. They are not talking about the actual age of the galaxy itself, but the age of the light that the galaxy emitted. If you look through a telescope and observe the Andromeda galaxy, you can say that that image of the Andromeda galaxy is about 2.6 million years old, while the Andromeda galaxy itself is probably closer to 10 billion years old or more.
Now that's funny, because we don't know how fast light travels. There's absolutely no way of measuring how fast light travels.
We don't need to test how fast light travels, because we know how fast light travels. Our entire radar industry is designed around the precise knowledge of the speed of light. CC, you are a fucking idiot.
But the scientists will let you know that at 7.5 times around the world in 1 second, and it's 186,000 miles per second. How do they come up with that number?
The historical story of how humans discovered the finite speed of light is well documented. It really gets good when Danish astronomer Olav Romer made visual observations that were later mathematically interpreted by Christian Huygens. These observations led to a value of around 212,000 kilometers per second. We'll skip a few scientists and measurements that were made until we get to the flat Earth's favorite globe scientist, Albert Mickelson, who used spinning mirrors to accurately measure the speed to 299,853 kilometers per second. Now, around that same time, James Maxwell developed the Maxwell equations describing electromagnetic properties and concluded that light must be an electromagnetic wave, something that we know to be factual today. The discovery that light was an electromagnetic wave is one of the key findings that drove Einstein to develop his theory of special relativity.
So if that number's fake and that number's bullshit, that means anything that they're looking up there in space, they don't know anything at all. They know nothing. It's all bullshit.
And you are an idiot. If the speed of light is just all bullshit, then how is it possible for radar technology, GPS, and satellite systems to all work flawlessly when these technologies are all based on the speed of light being constant?
There is no space, guys. Doesn't exist. It's a figment of your imagination.
Okay, I'm starting to see now why so many of you wanted me to do a video covering this guy. It's almost as if every time he opens his mouth, he's trying to out-stupid the last thing he said. Space is fake? CC, you're an idiot.
I don't know. I know one thing, though. That every single scientist out there is an absolute liar. Because the speed of light is undeterminable. Okay?
And you're a fucking idiot. I really hate when flat earth punks like CC sit back in their safe space vans and denigrate the scientific community because they're too fucking stupid to understand the actual science. Not to mention, these fucking idiots are talking shit about the scientists all while using technology based on their discoveries. I'm done being a nice guy to these disingenuous dipshits. But to answer your question, there are many ways to determine and measure the speed of light yourself. I'll post a link in the description of a way that even a child can measure the speed of light with a microwave and a chocolate bar. And CC, before you get all excited, it doesn't involve eating the chocolate bar at light speed. So let's hear what the blue-shirted chocolate monster has to say next.
I want to get into mud flood real quick with you.
Mud flood. Who could have guessed? Oh, I could have guessed, because it's in chapter 2 of my book, right after Flat Earth, on the origin of idiot species by means of de-evolution.
And the age of these rocks that are around, that scientists want you to believe are 50 trillion years old.
CC, I love free idiot points as much as the next man. But dude, come on. You gotta try harder than that.
Or 50 billion.
Oh my god, you're such an idiot. If the Earth is less than 5 billion years old, then how are there rocks that are 50 billion years old?
Or 50 million years old, or whatever ridiculous thing that they come up with.
I knew if I gave you 50 trillion tries, you would eventually get it. So without taking 50 billion years to get there, can you give us your best 50 million year old evidence?
It was a picture of limestone, okay? And the limestone actually grew around this rock. I mean, this cup. I believe it was a cup or something like that. Some kind of artifact. It's either a cup or a plate or something. But you can see the limestone, and it actually, over time, I don't know, thousands of years, I guess. Who knows? It's not that long. It actually You know how sometimes you see, all right, perfect example.
Somebody get CC some Ritalin. He's having trouble completing his own thoughts again. Limestone, cups, plates, go.
In Westchester County, we see this in a lot of the racket clubs and tennis places. You know, they have the fencing around the perimeter of the place to keep everybody locked up, like cattle, of course.
Are you talking about the barrier that is put up to keep logical, sane, paying customers away from flat earth, mud-tard idiots like yourself? Money well spent, in my opinion.
You sometimes see these trees that have actually grown through the fence. You've seen that before, right? This is exactly what this limestone did on an artifact.
That's not how limestone works. So most likely, CC is talking about tufa limestone, which is a type of limestone that you can find in caves like Mother Shipton's cave in England. You can see objects encased in limestone that were left by visitors from only a few months back. That limestone is formed when mineralized water from the waterfalls falls onto the items, and the limestone forms rapidly due to its fine-grained size. Unless the object is positioned in a way that the forming limestone becomes too heavy for the object to support and it breaks, it won't begin to grow into anything. It will just form around the object. It might help in the future to do some research about limestone before using it incorrectly as a proof. Just saying, you're an idiot.
Thanks. These are rocks that you're looking at. God, are they trees? I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, you got that right. You have no fucking idea what you're talking about, because limestone rocks are not fucking trees. They are made of calcium carbonate, which means they were at one point at the bottom of a sea, and trees don't fucking grow at the bottom of the sea, you absolute idiot.
But they're certainly not as old as you think. Absolutely not. Take a look at an old piece of driftwood in the ocean. Look at the nooks and crannies on it, especially if it's been split in half or whatever. And you see those nooks and crannies. They look exactly like the top of stones, of some of the stones that you're looking at.
Why do I feel like I have to say this in every video? Looks like something does not mean that it is that something that it looks like, you idiot. If that were the case, then CC is so obviously Humpty Dumpty.
So yes, Devil Tower. Devil Towers definitely had to have been an ancient tree.
And you have to be a fucking idiot. Apparently one who suffers from an extreme case of apophenia, or the psychological condition in humans that causes us to see a pattern in one object and find a meaning or connection to a completely unrelated object, like rocks and trees.
But this all goes to mud flow. You know, how is it cut down? How is it perfectly cut down?
It wasn't cut down because it's not a fucking tree, you idiot. Geologists still have no definitive explanation about how Devil's Tower was formed, but one thing they can all agree on is that Devil's Tower was magma before it was rock, and that is evident by the vertical columnar joining, which is present in rapidly cooled magma formations around the world, but is not present in petrified wood.
I don't know. I don't know. I could come up with 50 million explanations for it, but none of them
will make any fucking sense. Or I know, none of them will be factually accurate. And not to be mathematically pedantic, but it's taken you almost 3 minutes to come to just one incorrect conclusion. At that rate, do you realize it's going to take you a little more than 285 years to come up with 50 million excuses when you could have spent just 5 minutes doing the research and eliminating all the guessing? CC, you're an idiot.
I don't know. Who knows? Were there giants that lived among us? It seems like it, but we don't know this. But it certainly seems that there was a mud flood of some sort.
And you are a fucking idiot, because we are talking about just a few hundred years ago, like after the invention of writing. We have detailed historical accounts of many different events from many different civilizations from around the globe during the time period, and mudtards still think that a global mud flood happened even though nobody thought it was significant enough to document. And if a race of giants walked the earth, where are their bones, their graves, or any proof that they actually existed?
These are all lies again. Lies to make you think that you're helpless. And that's exactly what we are.
Your helplessness is self-inflicted. Everything you said in this video was factually incorrect at a high school physics and history level, so I suggest you go back to school and get an education before complaining about being helpless, because you are a fucking idiot. I think this is where we're going to stop today.
Yeah, well, you had your challenge. He failed. Miserably. Because as you like to say, this boy is an idiot. So, dang! Dang, 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 dang. Did I mention dang? Because, well, dang. Ding, 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 ding. Ding, ding. And dang. Ding, ding. One more? Really? I gotta suffer through another? Alright, fine. Just 'cause I love everybody. One more, I'll suffer. Bring 'em on.
Is absolutely flat.
The Earth is absolutely not flat, but you are absolutely an idiot. So this is Dave, or better known as Allegedly Dave, supposedly. And Dave became popular with an appearance on a Macedonian TV show called Late Night with Malenko, where he got an opportunity to express his personal beliefs that the Earth was actually flat. Now, most of you are probably familiar with this interview, but I'll post a link in the description for those of you who aren't.
My name's Dave. I'm known as Allegedly Dave. I'm 56 years old, and I know that the Earth is a flat, motionless plane.
Flat Earthers always say stuff like that. I know the Earth is flat. I know the Earth is motionless. However, I'm still waiting for a single Flat Earth idiot to step up to the plate and show how they know the Earth is flat, with a single piece of irrefutable evidence to support the Flat Earth that can't be debunked by a group of preschoolers playing with Play-Doh.
That is, the model is that...
Oh, wait a minute. You got Play-Doh? I'd rather have Play-Doh than to listen to this guy. Give me the Play-Doh! Give me the Play-Doh!
There's a disc of water with continents strung out around the North Pole in the centre, and it's bordered on the circumference with what we call Antarctica.
Sometimes I wish Flat Earthers would stop concerning themselves with the shape of the Earth and take one day to learn about some basic geometry. So let's talk about circles and spheres. If the Earth were a circular disk, then the concentric circles around the North Pole would simply get larger and larger and larger all the way out to the South Pole. Now, if the Earth were a globe, then the concentric circles around the North Pole would get larger and larger and larger until they reached the equator, where the circle would be at its maximum circumference, and then they would start getting smaller and smaller and smaller on their way down to the South Pole. Now let's introduce the Tropics of Cancer and Capricorn, which both reside about 23.4 degrees away from the equator in each direction. Now, if the Earth were flat, then the Tropic of Cancer should be way shorter than the Tropic of Capricorn, because the Tropic of Cancer is way closer to the North Pole. However, if the Earth is a globe, then the Tropic of Cancer should be the exact same length as the Tropic of Capricorn. And what do you think we see in reality? Exactly. The Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn are the exact same length, meaning the Earth cannot be flat.
Yeah, it's literally the circumference of the Earth. It's again, if you imagine the North Pole in the centre, all the continents kind of strung out around the North Pole, and round the edge is what we call Antarctica.
Just one problem there, Dave. The northernmost tip of Antarctica extends all the way to 63 degrees south latitude. Knowing that there's 69 miles between each degree of latitude, we can then calculate the distance between the North Pole and the northernmost tip of Antarctica. We do this by adding 90 to 63 and then multiplying that number by 69. That gives us a value of 6,273 miles as its radius. Now that we have the radius, we just multiplied that by 2 to get the diameter, and multiplied that by pi to get the circumference. And that gives us a value of 39,414 miles, which is almost 4 times greater than the scientifically accepted and measured value of 11,165 miles of Antarctic coastline. This single fact alone destroys the flat Earth narrative. Now, you might be asking yourself, why do flat earthers even exist, knowing these facts? Well, quite simply, flat earthers are undereducated and mathematically illiterate idiots.
There's this thing called the Antarctica Treaty, which is a treaty by all the United Nations countries that have agreed that nobody is allowed to go there.
If the Antarctic Treaty was designed to keep people away from Antarctica, then who the hell is taking all the pictures of people and penguins on Antarctica? The Antarctic Treaty is actually designed to keep humans from damaging one of the last few untouched habitats that we have in this world. You know, because we as humans actively fuck up every other place on this globe. And there's also 3 purposes to the Antarctic Treaty. 1 is to keep countries from colonizing Antarctica. 2 is to keep military away from Antarctica. And 3 is to ensure that there's a coordinated effort between countries on Antarctica, even if outside of Antarctica those countries are at war or don't share the same political views. Now, your home country may make it difficult and expensive for you to go visit Antarctica, but nowhere in the Antarctic Treaty does it say that people are not allowed to go to Antarctica, even if they're a bunch of flat Earth idiots.
You can go there on a package tour, and you'll go to the kind of outer islands, you know, see some penguins, go and see a barbershop pole that's supposed to be the South Pole, which they'll tell you isn't the actual South Pole, and that's it.
First off, there is no red and white striped barbershop pole located at the geographic South Pole. The pole there is a commemorative marker that honors the first 2 explorers to reach that point in 1911 and 1912. Interesting fact about that marker is that it resides on an actively moving ice sheet, so once a year someone has to go out, retrieve the marker, and reposition it over the geographic South Pole. Now, the photo op South Pole is located a short walking distance away and is typically the pole that you'll see people posing with in photos. Interesting fact about that pole is that it too resides on an actively moving ice sheet, and it too must be repositioned each year so that it stays relatively close to the geographic South Pole.
If you want to go any further, or you want to go unaccompanied, you'll get turned back by the military.
Well, if you don't follow the proper procedures to visit the protected environment of Antarctica, then there's a good possibility that a military or police force will meet you to try to stop you. Number 1, they don't want people out there fucking up the environment and possibly adversely affecting science experiments. Number 2, it's Antarctica. It's really fucking dangerous, and you can die easily. And number 3, humans are a compassionate species, and we typically do everything we can to save somebody who's in immediate danger. But nobody wants to put their life on the line voluntarily just to go rescue some flat Earth idiot who got lost in the middle of Antarctica looking for an imaginary dome.
Well, I used to be a computer programmer, and I was so into science that I would listen to science lectures.
Wow. Dave listened to science lectures. Well, I just watched a Korean TV show on Netflix, but without the subtitles, I wouldn't have understood anything that was being said. You see, you can't just listen to science lectures and expect to know exactly what they're talking about, any more than I can watch a foreign film and know exactly what's going on without the subtitles.
Damn it! I knew I was doing something wrong. Why you gotta burst my bubble tonight? Come on.
Allegedly, Dave, you're an idiot.
while I was working. So I did a lot of research on Einstein's theory of relativity. I was listening to Richard Feynman lectures. I was into science. I was just a normal bloke, just doing what everyone else does. But then you start seeing things that are wrong.
Nothing really gets to me as much as when these Dunning-Kruger dipsticks name-drop scientists like Albert Einstein and Richard Feynman, who both knew that the Earth was a globe, by the way. Especially when they mention Albert Einstein and his theory of general relativity, which happens to be one of the most difficult theories in all of science to understand. But this idiot is prepared to tell everyone who makes a living teaching, studying, and putting general relativity into practical use just how wrong Einstein and his theory really was. Because he listened to science lectures. Dave, you're an idiot.
And rather than just ignoring them, thinking I must be stupid, I thought I'd actually look into them and see what I can find out about them.
I'd first like to say that ignorance is not the same thing as stupidity. If you watch a video on general relativity and you just don't get it, it's probably because general relativity involves some very complex and complicated mathematics that you probably weren't exposed to in school. So your ignorance is not why you're stupid. You're stupid because you're ignorant, you know you're ignorant, and yet you still walk around and tell everyone else who's informed that they are wrong. Allegedly, Dave, you are an ignorant idiot.
And once you do that, that's the turning point. Once you actually look, stop and look, put aside your preconceptions, then you find stuff. There's indoctrination right there. All these little kids looking at that, being told by their teacher they live here. This is the indoctrination.
I would make a joke about it being okay for you to be around little children, but I'm sure those kids are safe. I'm sure the teachers have already told them to stay away from the crazy idiot whose breath smells like a dirty diaper.
Even when NASA puts their stuff out that looks like this, they forget that the clouds are supposed to move.
Oh my God, you're such a simpleton. How fast do you think clouds travel through the sky anyways? Let's say that we could take Himawari 8 and look at one half of the Earth for 12 consecutive hours. Now, if we have a cloud that starts on one side of the Earth and it moves all the way to the other side of the Earth in that 12 hours, then that cloud would have to be traveling on average about 1,000 miles per hour for the entire duration. Now, have you ever seen a cloud traveling through the sky at 1,000 miles per hour? Yeah, me neither. Dave, you're an idiot.
In fact, you find in the clouds they show in their pictures, they use the clone tool to use the same picture of cloud and stamp it around the globe. There's even the word sex written into the clouds somewhere, which is a known psychological trick to get you to engage in something.
Yeah, sex. And you'd know that if you weren't a flat earth idiot who walks around all day with breath that smells like ammonia. Besides, even if someone at NASA was responsible for writing sex in the clouds, that's still not evidence to support the flat earth. It's only proof that at least one person at NASA has an amazing sense of humor.
Every time I fly, I always take the time to speak to the pilots. And half the pilots I've spoken to have seen the curvature. Half the pilots haven't seen the curvature. According to mainstream science, nobody can see the curvature from the passenger jet.
I'm sure the pilots are just so happy that a grown-ass man is coming up there and asking them a dumbass question, like whether or not they can see the curvature while they're flying the plane. Yes, Dave, they can see the exact same thing you can see. Boats going over the horizon, sunrises and sunsets, and the horizon getting further away as you go up in elevation, all of which are exclusive observations due to the curvature of the Earth. So yes, when half the pilots say that they can't see the physical curvature of the Earth, that's expected, given the tremendous size of the Earth. And when the other half say that they can see the curvature of the Earth, it's probably due to the undeniable effects of the curvature of the Earth. Regardless, let the pilots fly the plane and quit being an annoying flat Earth idiot.
The moon landing is absolutely fake.
No, it wasn't. and you're a disingenuous piece of human waste for saying that it was. And what's with flat earthers and all these absolutely statements? When you say something is absolutely something else, what you're saying is that it is a factual truth with no room left for interpretation. Like saying that 3 is absolutely greater than 2. So when you say that the moon missions were absolutely faked, you need to provide some kind of factual evidence to back that assertion before someone like me is going to believe you. Now, as far as my absolutely statement goes, I have plenty of evidence, about 70 videos or so, to back my assertion that all flat earthers and all moon landing deniers are absolutely fucking idiots.
The supposed lunar lander. It's one good thing is it's really accurate because there's no blast crater underneath the lander where there's a massive rocket engine, and there's no dust in the pads there. So very accurate indeed.
Come on, Dave. You know this is just a mock-up of the original lunar landing site on the moon, and it's not meant to be taken as an absolute fact, you idiot. And the lack of a blast crater on the moon is completely due to the lunar lander missing its original landing site and landing on a part of the moon that had a much harder surface, therefore no blast crater. And the lack of dust on the lunar lander landing pads is actually a good indicator that that occurred in space and not in Earth's atmosphere.
But to think that this contraption made it to 238,000 miles away and landed on the moon is just ridiculous.
You do realize that what you're looking at is just the lunar module Eagle. This part only went from the command module Columbia to the lunar surface and then back to Columbia. And let's not forget the Saturn V rocket that helped the command module escape Earth's gravity. So it wasn't just the lunar module that got us from Earth to the moon and then back to Earth, you idiot. So I think this is where we're going to end the video today.
Thank God. Because I am about to kill some of these flectards. So with that, we're going to leave that to the deal. We're going to leave part 2 of today also to the end. Kira did pick up a couple notches on her belt, going from 5 left down to 3. When we do come back, we come back for Midnight in the Desert, the Master of the Macabre will be with us in the overnight. So again, like, share, and subscribe. Get us to where Boxy pays attention to us, which is 5,000 views, and 1,000 subscribers where YouTube pays attention. And until then, it's a great new world to release the Krakens. We'll see everybody overnight for Midnight in the Desert.